What's going on, everyone? I'm coming to y'all with yet another knife review, and now we are looking at the last knife that Schrade sent me for review. Yes, this knife was provided by Schrade for the purpose of carry and review and testing, and I've got about a year's worth of carry, use, and testing on it, so I think I'm qualified to speak on this blade for damn sure. However, despite the fact that it was a provided product, my opinions are wholly my own. Schrade did not tell me I had to give it a good review, nor would I have agreed if they did. They didn't try to buy my opinion. They're a respectable company, thankfully. It's just, my opinion as it is. So, what do I think of the Schrade Alpha Series Radok? Well, let's jump into it and have a look. Okay, so first of all, you notice that we have a big Wharncliffe style blade here, which isn't the most common blade shape, and we're looking at about a 4-inch blade. I think Schrade says this is 3.5 inches. I measured, they're wrong, and that tends to be a thing I've noticed with some of Schrade's recent stuff. They seem to have some measuring problems, and that's fine. No big deal. It happens. I've noticed the same thing with companies like Spyderco, CRKT, Gerber, Benchmade. Sometimes the people who are measuring things are just measuring at, from the wrong point to the wrong point. But I want to specify it because, 3.5 inches, that's about the length of your cutting edge. Okay? But the law doesn't look at that. The law is going to look at the length from here all the way to the back piece of tang when the knife is deployed. They're going to consider that whole run the blade. So legally, it's a 4-inch blade. This is important because if you live in an area that has a restriction that's under 4 inches and, you buy this knife and carry it, you can get in legal trouble. So keep that in mind. We have a 4-inch Wharncliffe blade, which, by the way, happens to be made out of S35VN, CPM S35VN, according to Blade HQ. Not entirely sure if it is actually CPM S35VN. I know that with Crucible metals, sometimes there's different versions. Maybe S35VN is all CPM. I'm not sure. I'm a little out of the loop. But what I can tell you is this S35VN blade has performed incredibly well. This thing has been put through hundreds of pieces of cardboard. It has been used to prepare an incalculable number of chicken fried steaks and pork chops and fried chicken. And opening Amazon packages. It's gone through quite a bit of heavy use. And let me tell you, this blade has held up remarkably well. First of all, it has a nice high flat grind on a fairly thin blade stock that slices like a freaking dream. Okay, beautiful satin finish on it. And the S35VN itself held its edge like you would expect S35VN. It was still razor sharp after quite a bit of use. And I didn't ever have to sharpen this thing. I just honed it every once in a while, which is different. Kind of like stropping. If you hone or strop your knives, you don't have to sharpen them nearly as frequently. And it's super fine edge return. And this thing does take just a wicked fine edge, and it's wearing one right now. Like, you could shave a hair off a boar's tit with that thing in a heartbeat. I think Cajun Blaze originally said that. And yeah, it's not wrong. This is a really, really functional blade shape. Not a lot of belly or anything like that, so it's not the best for any kind of draw cuts. But we do have a hell of a fine tip on here, and this thing makes short work of anything you push it into. It really is an excellent piercing tip. So, big fan of that. Would I say this is an EDC knife? Absolutely. Would I say it's a self-defense knife? Well, yeah, I would, because again, that tip is super sharp. And yeah, not the most effective slashing weapon, but it's a great piercing weapon, and that's kind of what a lot of people are going to be aiming for anyways, if you're, God forbid, in a situation where you have to defend your own life. So, yeah, I love the blade on this thing. Really, it's wonderful. And I believe I mentioned this already, but you can see this is made in the USA. So for anyone out there who isn't a fan of import knives, don't worry. This thing is built right here in the good old US of A, America. And it's really, really hard to get mad at that, because at the end of the day, American knives will hold their value better than import knives. So at the very least, from a collecting standpoint, that should mean something to some of you out there. Okay. Deployment and lockup, it's smooth. This thing deploys super smooth and super quickly. Okay, it's a dual thumb stud design. The thumb studs provide, adequate traction. It's a fairly simple design, but we can get in there really nicely, and you can see this thing just it deploys super, super smooth. I think it might be running on a bearing system in there. Love the deployment. However, I keep it 100% with you guys. You know that. The lockup isn't perfect. Side to side, oh yeah, we're good. Up and down. Can you hear that? We have a little bit of blade play. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, that kind of sucks. Now, yes, I know a lot of people who have experience with these pivot locks or axis locks or whatever you choose to call them. A lot of them will tell you that it's not uncommon to find a little bit of up and down blade play. And I do have to stress, it is just a little bit. You don't feel it when you're cutting. I have to really rock it to feel it, but I can feel it. And I've had a lot of Benchmade fans tell me that they own several knives that have that issue. I can't speak to it personally. I haven't owned tons and tons of Benchmade axis lock knives, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up in this video. And I am going to have to take points off for that, because for a knife that you buy on Blade HQ for $209, that's kind of rough. I'm not going to lie. However, I want to say one thing quickly. Well, Blade HQ has it for $209. Amazon has it for $107. So, you know, prices will vary quite a bit on this knife, as it turns out. Moving back into the technical specs, pulling up my notes on my computer to my side here so I don't forget. The handle is 5 inches long, and it's made out of carbon fiber. But we can see some fit and finish issues with the carbon fiber. We have some pitting here, which may upset some people, especially if you spend $209 on the knife. Me, I don't care, but I know some of you might. It's a slick carbon fiber, but it gives you a little bit of grip, not much. Centering on this blade is spot on perfect, however, and I love to see that, because for a knife at this price point, we kind of should expect spot on perfect blade centering. The pocket clip, as you can see here, is a nice beefy design, and it holds the pocket really, really well. Let's just go ahead and give you a demonstration. That's about how much you'll have exposed, and it obviously holds on to the pocket pretty effectively. Downside is there's no left-hand carry on this knife. I criticize the Truex for being a fully ambidextrous knife except for pocket clip orientation, and the Radok is no exception. It's going to get the same criticism. This should be lefty-friendly. Yes, this is a pretty specific clip, but, I mean, Cold Steel often provided left-handed clips as a bonus include on knives that were only like $40. So if they can do it, I think Schrade should be able to do it. We should have holes tapped for a left-handed clip over here. In my opinion, that just should be absolutely a thing, you know? Stop excluding the lefties. They enjoy knives too. But, you know, I digress. We do have a nice lanyard bail there, so you can throw some 550 cord through there if you want to really easily. Forgot to mention the jimping. Sorry about that. The thumb ramp up here is great, and the jimping is extremely sharp. Yet again, kind of like I mentioned on the Truex and the shutter, bordering on too sharp. This is not quite as bad as those, but it does bite in quite a bit, so keep that in mind if you're going to really bear down on that thumb ramp. Moving back into what I was mentioning before, though, ergonomics on this thing are fantastic. I mean, this thing just melts in the hand, and it is a nice big 5-inch handle, so, I mean, you got plenty of room no matter what size glove you wear. Hammer gripping this thing feels comfortable. Saber gripping it feels comfortable. It is just a really ergonomic handle design. So A+ to Schrade on that. Flow-through pillar design, of course. Pivot lock or axis type lock. Much like the Truex, you can deploy this thing with just one finger if you really want to. It is just that smooth and that excellent. And it's not weak. I mean, this thing held up to a year of consistent use without showing any problems or failing. So the spring isn't weak. It's just got the perfect tension to it, in my opinion. One thing worth noting is the weight on this is only 4.2 ounces. So this is pretty freaking light for a blade of this size. So if you are weight conscious, that is a thing. But I should mention that they did not skeletonize these stainless steel liners at all, and if they had, they could have got that weight down even further. So, another criticism I'm going to lay against it, because it does feel like a step that should have been taken. But, you know, this company, the company who owns Schrade now, is just kind of getting into their groove. They're finding their footing. and they're bound to have a few growing pains. It's still a lightweight knife overall, so I don't think it hardly matters, but I wanted to mention it. Overall, I think this is a pretty solid knife. It's not a perfect knife, and I'm going to say the value gets worse as you creep up to that $210 Blade HQ price. You know, if you're looking at $210 for this thing, I'm going to say the value scale on it drops down considerably to like a 5 out of 10, just because you have so many amazing knives at that price point with comparable or better materials, and you know they're going to give you left-handed carry options and are going to give you a tighter lockup. But for the $107 price range of Amazon, this thing is pretty damn hard to beat, and it's entirely possible that mine is a fluke having that tiny bit of up and down blade play. I mean, my Truex didn't have any, and it has the same locking mechanism, so who's to say? It's entirely possible that it was just, you know, somewhat of a lemon in that way, but as well as this thing performed otherwise, I'm not in the least bit upset with it. This has been an excellent EDC knife, all things considered, so if you get it for $209, 5 out of 10. If you get it for $107, 7 out of 10 for sure. Could go up to a 10 out of 10 relatively easily just by addressing the lockup issue, giving us a left-hand clip position, and milling out those stainless steel liners. So that has been my review of the Schrade Radok. Quite an interesting knife. Definitely a cool choice for a larger EDC / self-defense knife. I'm happy I had a chance to carry it and use it and review it. Will it stay in my personal collection? I don't know. You know, I tend to only keep the knives I really, really love. So there's a chance this one's going to get sold off. If someone's interested in buying it, you know, comment down below. Maybe we can work something out. But overall, really cool knife. Thanks to Schrade for providing it to me for a review. I definitely enjoyed, you know, getting my chance to carry and use it and test it. It's a quality blade for sometimes a great price. All right. I hope you enjoyed.